I'm Bill Langmont with Western Engineering. Some of you I know, some of you I may not know, but I've been working with Chris and Todd to put together this preliminary engineering report. I believe all of you have got a digital copy of it that Chris will provide to you as well. So just to kind of do an outline of the project, if you got any questions, you have to answer another time, but it's going to lead into the discussion. So the existing water system, the plants and wells are at their capacity. Okay. The planning period for the study is a 20-year planning period. So from 2020 to 2040, we're projecting another 50% in demand growth, primarily in the industrial park. So the existing water system and the treatment plant can accommodate that growth. So we need to expand that plant, expand that well field. As we're doing that, there's well 16 and 17 on Armstrong Road that are really at their end of the useful life, and the Henley plant as well. So those facilities are being demolished. The 3 water towers, all new work. The east and west tanks are being a control valve that's going to help push water out to the Jefferson tank to help with some water quality issues out there. And the west tank itself is due for maintenance. Right? We need to make ocean upgrades. As far as the distribution system goes, there's 3 main water projects. 2 of those have been done. We've got 28, which I know you guys have been talking a lot about. Also, County 75 north, and then County Road 00 east out to the loop around Jefferson. Okay, so those are the 3 water main projects that are needed in the system, either because of NDOT's coming through and requiring relocation, or there's dead end mains. We've got to push water around the Jefferson Park. So, in terms of the well fields, we're adding 2 new wells. The test wells have already been drilled, so we've already identified that the water is there, what that capacity is, and that existing Armstrong well field that's probably going to max out that well field in terms of area. Okay, we put a new transmission main parallel to the 12-inch transmission ring to bring that water up to the treatment plant, and then we're going to expand the plant out to the capacity that was designed to be expanded. So new aeration in 2 tanks, 2 new filters, 2 new high service pumps. While we're doing that, we're going to make some upgrades to both the electrical system, SCADA system, control systems, some of those components that have aged with newer, better technology to be able to do that. So it's very improved drives and high service pumps. New flow meters on the original wells, put in 92 out of 12 flow meters on those wells. As we expand the plant up to that 6,000 GPM capacity, we get into a new pouring regulation. Okay, we would be required to store over 1,500 pounds of pouring gas on site, and that takes us up into an EPA regulatory category. So we're going to convert that system from a gas system to actually we're going to bring salt in. We're going to send electricity through it and generate pouring in that. So we're actually going to generate pouring on site instead of buying it. As I mentioned, the demolition of the remote sites, well 16 and 17, and nuclear plant are included. Also included is water meter replacement in the project. So the first 3 years, 5-year water meter replacement program is included in the study. So all this is wrapped into the loan that's going to be coming from the state revolving fund. So it's $13.3 million between all these projects that I've discussed, and these are included in form part of the basis for the rate study that we put together. So in terms of schedule, there's several steps that SRF requires as we move through their process, because essentially we're using EPA money to get a low interest rate. So we have to do a public hearing. So on July 20th, we're at a utility service board meeting. We're planning on doing a public hearing. That'll be advertised on the 19th for times for the meeting number 20th. We'll have the PDR available for the public to view at the water department 10 days before that meeting and 5 days after, just to give the public the opportunity to see that. So that's really the next big step in terms of SRF process that will happen. That's July 20th. At that meeting too, there'll be 2 resolutions that we'll ask the board to consider. One is a resolution to approve the PDR, and the second is to designate a signatory for paperwork with SRF. So I'll prepare and draft those resolutions for that meeting. After that work is done, we kind of move into bidding, so we're looking at advertising in August, opening bids in September, and then moving towards the one closing in October. Generally, those are the schedules for the project.
Questions? I think it's the part of the program, and we've been talking about the whole time, from the beginning of the planning and everything.
But you closer on this one than you did the wastewater treatment plant.
I wonder if you can expand a little on updating water meters. Tell a little more about that. Is that for residential customers, industrial customers, all customers? Is that remote read? Is that technology we're currently using or going forward?
So this is, talking to Chris. Yeah, absolutely.
The average age of our water meters right now is 2012. So they're already 8 years old, over half of them are. We currently have, I think, 560 or 590 currently that are radio read, roughly 6,000. So we would like to put the funding in there into SRF to account for new meters that are radio read. That way we save on labor and so forth moving forward. To get a more accurate read, we're not sending people out on rereads daily from the building department and everything else as well.
And radio read meters are something that SRF will allow you to borrow money. Because the meters themselves are very expensive. Well, not so much the meter, but the electronics that go with the meters, but that'll allow us to be able to read. Let's say we have a real heavy winter, snow everywhere, we can't get in to read them well with remote reads. Just replace them as we've been doing a few, for the last year and a half. It'll allow us to get more and get basically hit residential. All the industrial markets are being converted to radio.
What's the cost on replacing 5,500 meters? You're saying we need roughly 5,500 new more meters for all?
It depends on which brand we go with. You can get them from less than 200 to over 300 a meter. We've got a pretty
What are
good
you putting in
ballpark.
right now? Which ones are you putting in right now?
They're a Badger, and I think a complete meter for them is around 240, 250.
You wouldn't be changing and going to something else, so you got two different meters out
Potentially we
there.
could, yes.
But the software, you can still read with the same software.
It's still, yeah.
But the parts and swapping them out and having them on the shelf to go back in if one froze and busted, where would we be there?
The meters it's really the top portion of the meter that's the electronics. The
Okay.
meters themselves, you can actually interchange some, if I'm not mistaken, on that, Chris. But
Yeah,
you can deliver things and put the different tops on different meters actually. Some of the meters you can get a Badger or some of the other ones that Chris has mentioned, they may be a different brand of meter, but the electronics are still the same.
It'll still work.
A lot of them you can.
Okay.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
I know your motor's out there. You got too many different ones out there, right? PJ?
Okay, that is my question. Thank you.
Chris, have you, and I haven't looked on my computer, but did you send me a breakdown of the 13.3 of what that is?
When did you send that?
I have one copy of that here.
My rate study has a copy of the items that would be financed from the bond issue, so it's just the 13 million plus a few other items.
I had sent everybody the link to the PPR probably 4 weeks ago. And it was the breakdown was in there. If not, I got a copy here as well.
And this is your kind of what's allowance to see the allowances of the meters and stuff in that.
Yeah, it does. It's got a whole breakdown. The allowance for the meters in the bond is about 722,000.
Is that on page 14?
That would be 3 out of 5 years, and we're hoping our plan is to fund the rest through the budget between wastewater and water together.
Yeah, page 14.
Page 14.
Are those, items in that 13.3 total,
Got it, Todd.
are any of
I got
those nice to have or wants, or are those all pretty much needs to get the system at a certain level of performance and capacity and currency? Or
Well,
you're more kind of discussing
Items we're going to be referring to,
what's, I'm asking,
Just
in
now
particular, or-
no,
yes, they are all ones, or all needs.
I had the phone friend get it to work.
okay, is that your,
yeah, so just to go down the list of what the expansion.
oh, sure,
Those plant expansion, or the conversion from foreign gas to offset generation is really a safety
understand that, yeah.
requirement. 12,000 overall needs, the demolition. We've got assets out there that the state union company. So I think the best course is to go ahead and trade it down and use that for options.
Sure, sure.
I think rehabilitation needs to be done. Investment there to maintain, the 3 water main projects. 2 are required by NDOT, and then leave the circular.
The loop is one I wanted to focus on. It's been a nagging asterisk in our system for a decade. And I don't like running pop of water to the ground just to flow to the system. So does that completion of that circuit keep us with enough flow volume wise so we're not having to drain to the ground to keep fresh water?
It is very minimal what we actually drain out on a daily or monthly basis.
No, I understand.
It used to be a lot, but we changed our operations, started raising more our tanks. So it's used to be, when I first started in 2016, it was roughly 19 million gallons a month. And it's down to less than 50,000 gallons a month.
So does this change in this funding get rid of the remaining circulation, deadheading we have? Does it give us enough circulation in
In the whole system, no, you're still gonna have that
in the industrial park?
in the industrial park.
No, that fixes the industrial.
Okay, okay, all right. I had one more question, comment. I'm sure you're aware we went to more of from a 24/7, 365 manning plan at our water plant. We transitioned to less of a human on site. And so the plans would at least continue that ability to work remotely and link in with SCADA and monitor and alarm and if you touch that stuff, you'd be testing it and that kind of thing, right? So,
Okay, some of the water transitions that
Yeah.
we're doing
Yeah.
are really geared to make that operation
Good.
work more, hold on.
okay, good. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I just think it'd be foolish not to use the automatic meter reader, the automatic meters. And to put this much money in there, why go with not changing those meters? Just makes no sense.
So the reason we're going for 3/5 of the amount for the meters in the SRF loan is that's about 3 out of 5 years worth. Chris, we talked about doing a 5-year change out. And by putting that in the SRF loan, you can accomplish about the first 3 years with bond proceeds. But then years 4 and 5 would be done out of the rates, and Andrew would be able to cover that. But that's the reason we've done the 3/5.
Okay, what's next?
Thank you.
Andrew with the right stuff.
Okay.
Does anybody want more cover?
I got
You got one.
I've got one, I got 11.
You need to take them back with you.
No,
Is it confidential?
It's not technically adopted yet, I haven't, it doesn't have my signature on it yet.
Oh, okay.
You know, we have,
Your autograph?
not yet. We're gonna read it anyway.
Can't read mine either.
Go on.
Thank you.
Looks like I had the right number. So there's a lot in here. Just the 40,000 foot picture. We looked at the existing financials of the utility, from historical. This is based on a test year or a full 12 months of data for the calendar year ended 12/31/2019. Then we took the budgeted 2020 information and basically adjust the historical information to the budget. And so there may be a little up in one line item, there may be a little down in one line item, but we try to project out what is a reasonable basis for operation and maintenance first. Salaries, wages, all the little things that go into the operating utility itself. And so that's where we get our test year, our adjusted test year. And you can see on page 4, you have the 12-month financial statements categorized in a certain methodology, and then the adjustments, and then that gets us to our operating revenue requirements, which is what we're looking for operations and maintenance, all the other things that go along with the operation. Now, there you see that it actually goes down in here, the adjustments goes down by 722,000, but there's some netting out of like internal transfers of funds that goes from the operational fund or the operating fund, and that might transfer to the utility service board fund, and then might transfer over here, because there's money that goes from one fund to another fund, insurance goes out of one area and comes to another area, so there's a lot of transferring in here. So what we're trying to accomplish is netting out all the transfers and determining the actual cost of operating the utility. And the financial statements, they don't necessarily do that as well, because it tracks all the movement of cash between different funds. So that's what we're doing in part, is netting some of those things out. But also adjusting if we think that the operating expenses are low in one area based upon the 2020 budget, then it's adjusted up or down from there. And you can see pages 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, the adjustments in a little bit more detail, kind of give you an idea of what some of these things are, where the adjustments come from. And we can dig into any one of these if we need to, but for now, I'm just kind of hitting the highlights.
The loss of income from the code and COVID's going to affect results.
Well, Todd and I talked about that a little bit. One of the things that we'll have to do prior to actually getting the financing to the SRF is that I'll have to update the financial information to do a full year's financial data through the end of June 2020. So it'll be 6 months 2020 and the last 6 months of 2019. And that'll, once I get that information, it'll give me a lot better idea of what the actual impact has been to date from that. But, if I knew the answer to that.
You can do something different, right?
Realistically though, from other places that I've seen as well, yes, did it have an impact? Particularly some, if you had a large water bottling facility, and they shut down, yeah, it's gonna slow things down. But a lot of the economic impacts, at least locally, for various kinds, have recovered substantially, and I would expect that, given time, the same thing would happen in Frankfurt. And Todd, I don't know if you have anything to say regarding any decline that you noticed.
It's just, we hit on it a little while ago, it's just the number of people that are just behind is what's impacting us right now, Joe.
Yeah,
And we're into the 6 figure range, but it's just not, I mean, that's all the utilities, that's just not
water.
Right. And the thing
Water-
is
water
we're
right
probably
now is
the end of June, and not gonna do
25%.
anything until at least August.
First 6 months of this year is 25%. So I mean, it would, you can see a major change to this. 2050.
Well, we'll get, I mean, we will update the numbers as soon as we have a full test year. Obviously, this is based on 2019. It doesn't include any future expected expansions of the industrial park or future growth. And, you know, certainly understand the hit to individuals' pocketbooks and everything else. So with time, I think, you know, we'll get back to a semblance of normalcy. And the hope is that, you know, we can have continued growth, particularly some of your large industrial users that'll help, not only offset some of that, but allow for additional, revenues to fund, other things that'll come up along the way.
I'm in this, I only see one slot per labor. Is there more than that?
There's a lot buried all throughout this thing.
Okay,
Yeah, I couldn't put,
I'm trying to find
Yeah.
labor,
you know,
is what I'm trying to find. Okay,
sometimes so there, page 6, you've got distribution labor, meter labor,
okay.
Labor.
It's
it's just scattered throughout depending on how the.
I just seen the one line
Yeah.
item over to the left, that's where it seemed awful low to me.
Yeah.
What? Okay. Now, we're doing.
But needless to say, I mean, we've got the water utilities 2020 budget, looked at, you know, the differences, and we'll bring that up to whatever the 2020 budget was, and so, so that would have included, you know, labor.
We calculating the additional pilot.
Right now, I think we have it just at $75,000. Now, you have the capacity to do more from a technical standpoint, but we're only using $75,000.
They do.
Go to page 10.
No, so the page 10 is a calculation that you go through to make sure you have enough technical capacity to pay the $75,000, but in fact, you could pay $110,000 to the city if that was the desire. But we have it at $75,000. And really, what happens is everything from the adjustment pages feeds into page 9. So page 9 is the annual revenue requirements. This is where the rubber meets the road, ultimately. So you have 1A is your operations and maintenance, 2A is your payment in lieu of tax. What you saw on the other page was calculations to make sure that you're getting paid $75,000 or whatever it was. Utility receipts tax, or the additional utility receipt tax above and beyond what is already being paid with the additional revenues. And then you have, one is no additional project on the left, the other one is with the additional project, the additional project being the capital planning and the bond. And so 4A is the maximum annual debt service on the current bonds. 5A is an aggregated maximum annual debt service. So you basically take your old bonds and you add the new bond schedule, the payments, you combine them, and whatever year has the highest payment, that's the number that you use to plug into here. It's just a calculation that you use for protecting bonding capacity. And so we have done the allowance for replacements and improvements, and the details of that are scheduled out later. And then we show total revenue requirements, just add all those up, less other operating and miscellaneous revenues that might be late fees and a number of various fees, but you deduct that off the top because you don't need to raise those revenues, you already have them. And then your total net revenue requirements, okay? Well, we already know what the total annual revenues are from our test year. So that shows us then under additional revenue requirements, 1,807,000. And that's 53.63% of the existing, revenues that we need to raise. And so that is the increase that, in order to fund all these items in here, that's the amount that you need to generate of additional revenue to make sure that it'll work. And then the things below are, debt service coverage calculations. I do these to make sure that you can show that you have the capacity to borrow money and repay it according to what the SRF's gonna wanna see. And once you do your revenues minus your O&M, you have, you subtract out your debt service, and then you have, cash flow available to fund, your pilot, your capital improvement that are not funded from the bond, or anything else that you might need fund that are not operations and maintenance or not bond payments. Does that make sense? So this is where it all comes together. So then we take the 53.6, our percentage increase, and fast forward a little bit in here. And then we get to page 12. And working with Todd, we came up with some phased increases in rates and charges. Ultimately, if we get to 53.63%, we phase it in over a 3-year period. And that first step would be 25% rate increase. And this is across the board, so everybody gets the same rate increase percentages. If you're inside the city limits, you get a 25% rate increase, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial. If you're outside the city limits, everybody gets 25% rate increase, regardless of what, line size you have. And this really goes through and just calculates what those charges and fees look like for your meter sizes, and if you're inside city limits or outside city limits, got your base charges and your consumption, fire protection. So that's your big schedule, the roadmap, as far as the implementation of those rates. Assuming those percentage increases stays in over 4 years. Page 13 then, it just basically shows, what does a water bill do for your average user? And your average user is currently paying about $20.50 a month. And so after the first phase increase, you'd be about $25.62 and then per month. And then at the phase 2 increase, you're going to be up to the $28.70. And then phase 3, you're going to be at $31.49. So you have a cumulative rate increase there, percent increase in current rate. So phase 1 gets 25, and then your second phase takes you up to a 40%, and your third phase takes you all the way to that 53.6% increase. Then I've got a bracket below there also for outside city limit folks as well. That question was brought up earlier regarding what's going to be financed, or what's the breakdown of the project that will be funded through the SRF. That's page 14. So we've got that 3/5 of the total meter replacement, about $720,000. The west tank rehabilitation, $2.1 million and change. State Road 75, State Road 28, County Road 0, the ER asset management plant, flooring system improvement, Armstrong Road, Now, there's a lot in here. So, if some of these things have already been paid and you don't want to seek reimbursement from them, from the SRF, then you just borrow less money and spend the cash already. If you do have to put money out and you do want to seek those reimbursements for those funds, and it matches up like this, then that's basically what I've outlined in here. Now, Rich will talk to you here in a little bit about, if you are wanting to seek reimbursement for cash that's already gone out related to these projects, he'll touch on that here in a little while.
Excuse me, yeah, but on the State Road 28, we had projected, this was, there was original projection was to be, it was a 1.736 million, and we ended up being a 1.1 million. So that number will come off of 600,000 and come off that 13 million number as well.
Yeah,
We already paid them,
Yes.
and that's what Rich is gonna talk to us next.
So like engineering fees and all of that, are they showing in here that we've already paid?
Marty's numbers that we received, these are the total project costs, and I believe the engineering fees are baked into these numbers.
The breakdowns are on there.
Yeah.
So
So these,
that, but your question, we can get that number.
they're in here.
They're in here,
Yeah.
but if you want the number to say if we pull that number out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, like, it's a separate line item.
Yeah.
We can get that number for you.
The contingencies, what number are you using on contingency, 10%?
Yeah. That's a whole nother spreadsheet, but Marty's gonna talk to us about.
Dylan's talks.
Sorry, Dylan, don't want to get it
I'd
right.
like to see that.
They'll be able to get the answer much more quickly.
So we're talking at a 53.6% rate increase to cover this 13.6.
That's part of it. The other part of it is the annual capital planning, which is a large piece. So this is amortized over, a long period of time, right? So you're only paying little bits of it each year. And then I think we kind of skipped around a little bit when we were talking about, I think we go to page, forgive me, I don't have the page memorized yet. Page 11. So you can see 6A, you basically have an annual allowance of $1.368 million for capital. That's not included in the annual budget. There's some, miscellaneous items in your annual budget that you budget for each year, but this is your annual allowance for capital that we've intentionally segregated over here for your annual water main replacement, annual lead service line replacement, and annual tank rehab. And so across those three items, basically at $1.3 million a year. Above that, you've got machinery and equipment. Now, you had some of that from the prior rate study. So we've left some allowances there that will amortize some generators, SCADA, fuel replacement vehicles, dump trucks, and backhoes. And those are basically a small amount each year so that, if you need a new backhoe over a 15-year period, you can accumulate some additional funds over a long period of time so that you can buy one and have it budgeted in there for that. But that's $55,000 a year. Now, hopefully your backhoe is going to last you a number of years. Below that, though, the annual CIP allowance is the 1.313. That's where you're going to be doing your large capital-intensive projects that you do on a pay-as-you-go basis. So there may be a section of main replacement or some lead service lines that you've identified that may be, this project this year or these projects this year. You will bring in enough cash to actually pay for those projects on an annual basis. Whereas the bond-funded project, that you get all the money up front. When you spend it, it's gone, and you're gonna pay for it for a couple decades. This is an annual allowance that you'll be able to target and identify specific, areas of the utility system every year and plan on that on an annual basis. This planning's well underway or done. These projects are identified. You said go, these will happen. These other ones will be kind of on a prioritized basis, I believe. Now, the details of which lines or this or that you would be funding through this cash flow, I have no idea. It would be really part of your overall plan. Yeah, working with the utility and the engineer to figure out and target which one you'd be wanting to do that here.
If we do all the projects that are in this part that we're talking about right now, say in a couple of years, they say, okay, you need to put in new water line from this Hyder Street to some other street. That's kind of like your working money for each year then.
Yeah, it's your capital budget. It will accumulate, right? So if you don't spend this each year, it will accumulate in a fund, a capital fund that you have, so that if you know you are going to have to do something like that 2 years out or 3 years out, well, the prudent thing to do would be to, for those years prior to that, make sure you're not spending all of it that comes in, so that you build up enough cash for that third year so that you can pay for it with cash. And so, so cash management of that is going to be king. Otherwise, what's the alternative? Well, we're sizing this so that you bring enough money to pay your people, keep your lights on, and a reasonable capital budget for major equipment like trucks, things like that, but nothing grandiose. Your taxes, a payment to the city of $75,000 a year to pay for the bonds for these projects, and then the only thing that is left over is your capital fund. And that is the thing that you have to manage really pretty carefully, particularly, with the size of the utility and the cost of the infrastructure that goes underneath the ground. So it's really where you really need to talk to your utility folks, your engineers, figure out what kind of projects you can tackle on an annual basis. And the only alternative other than doing that is borrowing more money to do a project. And that's not contemplated in this other than the financing that we're talking about today.
I think we call it depreciation.
Yeah, depreciation, construction, whichever one you want to use.
Did you factor in any projection for annual labor cost increases?
This one does not. It has no adjustment for the inflation. So, the recommendation would be take a look at it each year. I mentioned earlier, well, back up for a second. This contemplates a 3-year phase-in. So if you said go, and the city council said go, you're not going to have $1.x million a year in capital to be going out and spending the first year. The first couple of years, I would imagine that you're going to be spending a lot of these, the project money from the bonds. And that'll take a couple of years to do all the projects. After that couple of year period, you'll have 25% rate increase that, starting on whatever day, whatever month the first billing goes out, you'll be accumulating 1/12 of whatever the increase is. And after the third year, at the end of the third year, you will then be bringing in that $1.x million a year in capital. And so that's really going to be your fluctuating budget. If the growth in the system does not exceed the inflationary adjustments to some of the other items, well, there's one area that's probably going to take a little bit of a cut, but and it's going to be the only area that you have left is the capital fund, because you have to keep the lights on, you have to pay your debt, and you have to pay your taxes. So the only area left is that annual capital allowance. So, and again, it comes down to that, but an annual review of, a year-end financial review, revenues, expenditures, and transfers out, where do you land? Consider that during the budget process and see where you're at. Now, 2020 is going to look, I think, a little different just because of the COVID situation and and everything else, but, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. But we can't necessarily go too far out on projecting out inflationary adjustments. We're already 3 years out for just the implementation of this. And so there's something that we'll have to definitely keep an eye on and think about.
That's why I asked, I didn't know if that put in 3%,
No,
I created compounded under, didn't, so, fine.
You can look at some of the 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Those are really bond-related schedules for referencing and seeing where all the numbers came from and what our assumptions are. And then 20 through 23, really just information to give you an idea of the meters built by class. It's really just a lot of data there, but if you just kind of run across there and look at it, you can see what's going on from month to month, for the test year, whether it be residential, or business, industrial, and it's got, 16, 17, 18, and 19 data in there so that you can just kind of take a peek at it. Well, generally, I'm not going to stare down the paper and describe the numbers on there, but you can take a look at it. That's just considered when we're looking at it. So to think, is it reasonable that the rates and charges will bring in the amount of revenues that we expect it will? I think in a normal year, yes. This year, obviously, we're going to be down a little bit, but I expect that would recover over time, and particularly once if you have any additional large users coming online, or new housing conditions or anything else like that, it's really going to push growth. But right now, it's going to push growth for large users and any new housing developments or anything like that you might have be able to put new meters up.
So what? So you're using of our income right now at a 2.742 is a number that you're using as an average, 16, 17, 18.
What page are you on?
Do 1A, page 10.
So the 2.742, those are the actual operating and maintenance expenses for the test year, adjusted. So that's the operations and maintenance budget that we're trying to say. So what we do is we start actually with the expenses. We figure out what all the expenses are, and then we say, okay, well, here's the existing revenue. So all the expenses minus the existing revenues, and then we have a deficit. And that deficit is the amount that we need to raise in new rates and charges. There's an adjustment in here that I didn't mention earlier, but so with the new treatment plan and some of the updates that are going along with this bond-funded project, there are certain assumptions in here for some additional operating costs, particularly related to those projects. And you can see on this footnote here, I've added another $126,000 that was not in the 2020 budget or was not in the historical financial records because we think it will cost more money to operate some of these things. And you can see we have some allowances in there for tank inspections, well inspections, pump inspections and maintenance, and annual filter media replacement allowances. So these are over and above what are in the budget and for some of the capital that we've already identified, assuming that, you're gonna have some more costs, so we wanna go ahead and recover that as well.
So if you go to page 9. And the no project, you come down 2/3 of the way down there, it says total annual revenues. And it's 3.3.
Yeah,
So
that's 2019 revenues.
that's 2019 revenues. And so if we did nothing, you're saying we'd need a 2.3% rate increase to just break even.
Yes.
Okay, so you got a 3.3 million here. If you go back to page 21 and you look at 16, 17, 18, and 19 revenue brought in, none of them get over $2.8 million. The total out here for 16 is 2.8, total for 17 is 2.7, total for 18 is 2.8, total for 19 is 2.7.
I think maybe the discrepancy there is that it's not including fire protection or private hydrant and fire.
Which would be the 500,000.
Yeah, basically. That's I think that's the metered, village, not necessarily the ancillary charges that you have for,
Strictly build revenue.
yeah. And I did approve being, I took all of I got with the utility office and they gave me all of the billing records for every customer for every month for the entire year. And I ran or created proof to make sure that if I recalculated every single bill for every month for every customer for the entire year of 2019, I could come up with the same information that they got. And then if I apply the rate increases, does it actually generate the amount of expected revenue?
Accuracy of that might be questioned.
Well, that's why I wanted to do it, to make sure that I have nothing, other than the billing records that you're charging people, I got nothing to
That's
go
what I'm
by.
saying, the accuracy.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, the accuracy of that.
Yeah.
Question.
Well, that's all I got to work with. I mean,
I know that.
I can't do magic here. So, so if there are major adjustments to the billing, if it's down, then the revenue is gonna be less. If it's up, well, then the revenue is gonna be more. But generally, based upon all the only information I have to really give you, other than just taking, saying, hey, use 10% more or use this, I've got to use the data that I have available, and that's the one thing I got to work with.
Is that billed or collected?
That would be billed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that may be the case, but, if it's billed, there's a reason why you're billing it. If it's not collected, there could be a whole host of reasons why,
Well, I
Or
think,
it could be errors, I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, we as a utility are looking at astronomical numbers, I think, for the first 6 months. And I do not anticipate those to come back, at least for 6 to 7 years to, let's call it, pre-COVID-19 revenues.
Is it mostly residential or commercial, or what do you think is the big driving, is the bulk of the delinquencies?
I don't know that it's delinquencies. A lot of it is going to be, let's just say businesses shut down, and I believe the impact is going to go farther out than what anybody expects. And,
I think that's a good
you know,
good point. I mean, we can start making assumptions, adjustments. Anything that we do to decrease the existing revenue is only gonna drive up the rate increase.
oh, yeah, I know that.
Yeah,
And you know, do I think our counterparts want anything much higher than what we have here? No.
Yeah.
But I'm not really sure we can do this right here. And, you know, I've had these numbers for quite a while from Chris, and I've studied them, and I just don't think it is sustainable with these numbers, with the revenue that I'm projecting that we're gonna be breaking.
So, just for, I guess, for discussion purposes, in this option, at the 2019 test year revenues, assuming that what we're talking about for 2020, our base is 2019, so if there's a decrease from there, that's kind of the number that I'm trying to identify for you. So, on page 9, we see at the bottom, bottom right, project option 1, we see that you have $1.443 million per year left over to fund capital. Well, if this was put into effect and you had the bond debt service and, you know, you're still paying the same cost for all the operations of the maintenance, if there was a decline in revenue, the area that it's gonna hit is that. So if there's a big decline of $500,000, you're gonna do less capital spending.
And see, that's the mentality that has to stay. That the capital improvement plan that is put together that says you're gonna change these 12-inch mains, you're gonna change this, that's projected out, say 10 years, 15 years, depending what the revenue is, that's gonna have to change. And be flexible to say, there may not be no capital improvement that particular year. You know, I mean, we're, not that it's on this, I mean, we've got the same thing going on with electric. We got bonds, but, you know, we're $3 million less in revenue. So somewhere out in here, you know, you got, you know, that's just like in this one here, you can use the numbers and everything else, but with what is hit, you know, none of us sitting in this room has seen what we went through the last 3 months ever in our lifetime. Right. But, and, you know, I think it's gonna get twice as worse as it was. But, you know, we have to, things had to open. But now, you know, the big thing is everybody opened way too soon, you know, and it's gonna be a train wreck coming down the road.
Well,
And yeah,
I can,
you know, I'd like to see this number at 65%.
Yeah.
You know, and then I think we're more safe to do things. Right. Right. You know, I mean, that's a number that, you know, I mean, when you turn around and, you know, let's say this year here, we're gonna run 25% less in revenue. You know, next year, we're not gonna be 125%. Well, we might be able to get, you know, 25% rate
forms, yeah.
Which gets back to even.
Yeah, it gets us back even, and so then we're behind the 8 ball again as we go. But
I think, the thing Rick mentioned, you know, does it include inflationary increases? No, it doesn't. It doesn't include, an estimate for inflationary revenues, and it doesn't include an adjustment for decreasing collections for this year. We can make some assumptions in here, and we can kind of slice and dice it however we want, but, you know,
I
to your
think,
point, you know, oh, actually, 1 second, what I was gonna say, and I maybe alluded to it a little bit, is that really, on an annual basis, maybe need to look at this pretty closely, at least for the next couple of years, particularly to your point where, you know, there's a big decline. As part of your 2021 budget planning, looking at the financials and the revenues and the planned expenditures according to the capital plan, according to your operating budget, and specifically based on the, you know, the collections over at least the last several months and trending to see if that's if that's it's gonna hold up when you're doing your 2021 planning. But once we come out of this, things recover, if there are additional capital expenditures that you need to include, or if the inflationary pressures on wages are greater, if they start eroding the ability to do your capital planning, rather than waiting 10+ years to do another rate increase, you really need to kind of look at that more closely on at least a periodic basis. Once we get through this rate increase, look at it a little closer each year so that you can adjust frequently.
You said earlier, that like the 1.4 million in capital improvements, we're not gonna see that in the first year. It's gonna take 3 years or so. So, that's my concern is years 1 and 2 and 3 before we see that full, what's called the cushion, the capital project money that can be used or not used. The first year or two, that's the ones I think, coming out of what we're coming out of right now, going into this, that's where I feel we'll have problems.
That was point getting out of.
Right, because we're not gonna have this $1.4 million of cushion that first year.
Yeah,
And we're real far along. I think we have to go with it and watch it and everything else. The first year, you got we're showing a 25% rate increase. I'm not sure that maybe shouldn't have been a 30, but that's thinking after the revenues that we're seeing right now.
That can still be adjusted, we can do whatever on that first year.
nothing's adopted yet.
Yeah, we can do whatever on that first year. We just gotta put them in there.
Let me, it seems like the elephant in the room is knowing what we think we might know about this shock that the COVID-19 virus is causing now. Are there other clients of yours that have said to you, I want to have a higher increase in rates to account for, provide a cushion of the unknown, and if we're ahead of the game, fine, but I'm willing to take the beating in the PR sense for 15% higher rate change? Are you hearing that from anybody else?
Well, I'm doing most of my hard work, and specifically related to COVID, on income taxes, property taxes, and ancillary general, civil government revenues. And for the utilities, we need to really have a strong basis, a calculable basis to show that there's a reason why we're saying, well, it was 53.6%, but we're going to go ahead and, take it up to 63 point or 73 point. And so we would just need to update the test year numbers to reflect a decline in revenues, So, March.
But you're gonna do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that prior to the issuance of the bond. But at that point, before we can ever issue bonds, we have to have the rates and charges in place. And so, March, it started hitting, and we wouldn't even have any financial data through March until April sometime. And April really is when it started hitting some more in May. So there's always this lagging indicator. And when you start splicing 1 month of new data with 11 months of historical data, it kind of throws things out of whack a little bit. But now we have March, April, May, June. We have 4 months of this, and the remainder of a full year of everything else. But so there really hasn't been a whole lot of time yet to digest a lot of this. There's not really a whole lot of guidance on a lot of things pertaining to declines in revenues associated with the COVID. Not a whole lot that I've seen for utilities, some, but it's kind of a wait and see sort of game. But we have to do any adjustments based upon, a reasonableness factor. And then, the second question would be, if we adjust for a reasonableness factor and actual historical data for these COVID months, in the end, in the long term, are we really over increasing rates. Now, if we want to add additional capital in there, that's perfectly fine. But we have to be careful and, consider it thoughtfully and carefully. And, but we can slice and dice it, give any sort of, updates that we'd like to see.
You got his email. I need to send him the email I sent you to.
I think.
Well, I can send in the whole nuts and bolts of that, which is what all of the data in this packet came from me, was a real nasty one that you cleaned out. So, I mean, with it being, with what, like you said, March, April, May, be closed now in our system. And June, well, as far as revenue goes, June is done. Expenses, with the claims that we've got here, I hope all of the.
I hope more that's July.
Well, a lot of the invoices are from June. So all that stuff will close in June. The cash will hit in July, but you'll see the payables and everything. So I can send you April, May, and June, March, April, May, and June.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess just this whole
First
half of the year.
Yeah, first 6 months with a monthly breakdown for each one, because, for these purposes, we had to have through December 31st for knowing that SRF is gonna want a full year. And then when you try to splice a couple of months of this year and, 9 months of that year, it starts getting a little, funky. But 6 months of data is a good data set that I'm gonna have to update anyway for SRF, because they're gonna want a full test year ending June 30th, 2020. Because they're gonna be curious too about, how does Frankfurt look as a result of the decline or everything else.
But that might well inform us as to, are we gonna end up with an annual cushion, capital funds, or where's our weak points? Or
Oh, yeah.
we need a plan B
Yeah,
overall in terms of the rate structure.
I should be able to get that.
Issue of that revenue, what's the flow? What's our pumping right now compared? I mean, are we still pumping as much? Is it down?
Not quite as much, I'd say 10% maybe.
So I don't know.
See,
I
you're
just worked
10%
on-
down, but we're 25% off on revenue.
It's the difference between industrial, commercial, and residential. I can get
So
those numbers.
residential's that.
I can get you all those numbers if you'd like, I don't have them right
Which I think is,
now. As far as pumpage, and then the billing, I'd have to get from Stacy or Chris, as far as the dollar amounts. It's obviously different compared to the gallons pumped.
Breakdown should be,
they're on the paperwork.
yeah,
I got that right here.
I'm not able to connect, or I haven't pulled up.
Really?
So at what point in time would we look forward to you giving maybe us a brief update on, okay, looking at the first 6 months of 2020, declines in revenues, we're seeing that look like this pattern. We might expect some factor that might affect our overall rate schedule. Here's why. Is that something would be in
What?
August or?
No. If we're gonna do, I wanna get the data and start getting it done as quickly as possible.
Okay, so we.
Yes,
And I
because
can have that spreadsheet too.
that'd be fine, because if we're gonna do any adjustments to the current rate schedule, then I think that, time is of the essence, and I'm actually,
Well, I'm kind of like, I have no confidence in the short, next 2-3 years. It's a black hole to me. I don't know.
yeah. And, if we do need to, do a special meeting, I can just, plow through as quickly as humanly possible and see what we're looking like. the big thing would be, that capital line item and see, what we're kind of it's gonna drive up the rate increase. If you're looking to maintain about these same rates and charges, the increases of this, then, it's gonna hit your capital. If you're looking to adjust the rates to still bring in a higher level, then, I can do it either way.
I think
It's gonna be a temporary period that we're gonna work through and we expect to come back. That's one discussion. The other discussion is, let's get it set up and then as it comes back, fund more capital. Or, whenever it comes back, you're not, you don't have to, be at the mercy of waiting for it to come back.
I think we have to let it hit the capital and hope that it comes back and the capital comes more versus trying to go to 60%, rate increase or 63 or something like that. I think the 53.6 is since it's been so long since there's been a rate increase, and then there's, let's say, capital going with this right now to go in this, the 53 is living. You start going much higher than that, I'm not sure.
I think there might be some resistance at the council level to go up.
And that's fine as long as they understand, current councilor included, that the worst case might be our capital funding projects is nil for 5 years, because we don't know. It might be, we have very few projects going on until 8 years down the road, 5 years down the road.
You're gonna have a number of projects. If you go the way of the bond project, you're gonna have a lot, keeping you busy, I would imagine, with all the list of projects on here. It's gonna be a pretty large list of things that you're gonna be trying to manage and maintain for a period of time, so, and I'd have to defer to Chris and Marty on what the rest of the capital spending calls for outside of just managing these projects for the first year.
And understanding that beyond that bonding source of funds, we just may have a very limited ability to do capital projects for a while. And as long as the council understands that, if they're buying into a 33% rate increase, I'm fine. But you can't have it both ways and not talk about it.
Yeah.
Would be my point.
One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is, I know it's very easy to say, we should look at these rates every 2, 3, 4 years, but they don't look at the cost of what it costs. It's probably gonna cost us, what, $150,000, $200,000 to get these rates, to get all this done. I mean, it's very expensive to do, so you try to get your rate set so that you can progress and not get too far behind till you have to do a rate increase again. I know previously I went to the council back on the Gulf Water plant. They flat told me, don't come back for 10 years. Don't even think about it, rate increase for 10 years. And how do you fight that?
Well, maybe not a full-blown rate study, but just, working with Andrew's office and really carefully, not that you're not, but very carefully looking at and working with your capital plan when you're setting your 2021 budgets or when you're thinking about letting some projects for capital.
Well, there's really not been many capital.
Yeah.
Because there hasn't been revenue.
Maybe studies done.
Yeah,
There's some problem.
well, we don't have the revenue.
Yeah.
We're doing on an emergency basis.
Yeah.
With, and, in this case, I'd rather be with the 53%. And if we see that it's eating away at the capital, then we look at another rate increase 3, 4 or 5 years when this one goes out, looking at it again to go in it versus going in and trying to take a 60% and then all of a sudden things turn around and you have excess. Yeah, can the excess be spent? Is there things out there that need to be improved? Yeah. But,
Okay. hearing that kind of a consensus, not to, as everyone, I hear everyone saying, let's go ahead and proceed as what we planned. And with the preliminary numbers, and then when we get the final year that can be used, if there has to be adjustments made, make those adjustments. But go ahead and move this, step it on forward, keep it going, not have to go back and come back and look at more figures and see, well, okay, we should have made it a 58.9% or whatever. That's, I hear, what I hear from everybody is, let's proceed on as we have intended all along.
I think we started this long years ago to get to the point we're at now. If we don't progress now and go through with this, it's gonna cost us more money to do the things we're looking at doing in another 2 or 3 years. So we have to move forward.
And I agree, but I do have two specific questions. I'm not sure if you're the correct person, or if you're the correct person. Let me address the question quickly. I'm seeing something I don't normally expect to see. System development charges apply to service connections west of Jefferson. And so I'm inferring that the system development charges don't apply to new customers within the current city boundaries.
Correct.
And that's okay. We can treat.
Chris,
same
this
people
document
differently.
has nothing to do with it.
This is the document.
It's all supposed to go together. That's not you.
Yeah, some of the system development charges was approved here and then approved through the council and with the county council, or county commissioners, I'm sorry.
That was part of the interlocal agreement for
Right.
I-65 interchange. So that applies only to the people in the I-65 interchange TIF district, are what those system development charges apply to. And the county has system development charges for water and sewer, and the city also adopted system development charges for water.
Okay.
So that connection point may have to be changed. I'm not sure on that area.
No, that's fine. So then, does this other question apply to what your study has been looking at? And it's, again, from Chris's document, it's page 2, Chris. It's a whole litany of standard fees. I know it's nickels and dimes compared to the big numbers here, but well, I see.
Those are fees that I researched that other utilities charge.
Okay.
And some of them we do currently charge, some we currently do not.
Can we get a team together to look at that research you did? Because I'm gonna make the argument, we're not even covering our cost here. These numbers need to be much higher.
Well, some of those charges are in the ordinance that I gave you that would go to the council, and those are also at the 53.6% increase, so some of those
So
are higher.
they all are related.
The plan review, for instance, the one for independent firm is 90, the one for us as a utility is 75. Thought is that you'll gain some on one end and you may lose a little bit on the other.
Okay, to what extent are these reviewable by us if we get to it in a hurry?
I don't know what you're.
Andrew doesn't even know anything about, this is something that I put together and Todd has seen.
So it's on our side,
Yeah,
but it does feed into,
Does not feed any revenue into,
well, the study rates and charges. Tell me these rates and charges aren't in this.
no, some of those would be new that we would have to take to the council and get approved.
I'm gonna make the argument they're way too low.
that's fine, I'd be more than willing to.
So.
Yeah.
That's Mike asked me to
Can
go
we get the
through all
point
that stuff
person
and I
for
did.
water on our
Yeah.
board and
That is Joe.
us talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I need to do.
Yeah, sure, that's our problem. We were just looking at, not to go to the extreme, but not to be the, like our water prices right now are the extreme
I
low.
anticipated having to get rid of someone.
But some of those is on the average of where other communities.
I'm willing to charge, the meter tampering fee can be way more than $90. Your cost
I
tampering.
think that's the first offense.
That's in line with other utilities.
If we can talk, that's hard to us.
Yeah, that's fine, but that's something that would have to go in front of the council.
Oh, I understand, that's what I understand. Okay.
Yeah, the revenue, or the charges that I'm talking about are regular recurring monthly charges.
Usage,
Yeah.
meter usage, okay.
Whether it's fire or sprinklers or, whatever, those are the ones.
And this is a small little corner of the world.
Yeah.
What my understanding is, we have discussed many times different fees for different things that we have not been charging. And the conversation was, when we do another increase, let's add on those fees so we don't have to have the public hearing twice and do all of that. So Chris, is that what this is?
Yeah.
That's what Mike asked you to do, yes.
Okay. So that's why that's not
Okay.
included in there, because they don't exist yet.
Okay, so I'd like to see more board involvement. Thank you.
What was the third question? All right, are we ready to move on to Rich?
Yes.
Thank you for your report. Thank you.
Anytime. And then again, I'll work, and I'll report through Todd, as I get some of that new financial information available, I'll work with Todd. And,
Rich Sarkis, Barnes and Norberg. So, the resolution is part of the bond issue. So, it's a resolution we call the reimbursement resolution. And basically, under federal tax law, if you want to reimburse yourself, once you issue the bond, and take some of that money and reimburse yourself for things that you've already paid for, you need to establish your intent to do that. Basically, the feds don't want you to come back after 7 years and say, oh, we should have issued a bond or something. It's not issue. So they do this and they allow you to go back 60 days from the time you issue this, plus professional fees and things like that are a separate category you can reimburse. But generally for hard cost things, you're paying for hard costs, you go back 60 days from the adoption of this resolution and you can reimburse yourself. So we put in the projects here, a not to exceed amount of 14.5, which is a little high, do that maximum so you don't go above that. And this establishes your intent under federal tax law. So I would need a motion to approve it and then a vote. And then I get 2 copies signed, that'd be great.
Okay, which ordinance, or which resolution is this?
I don't know if the number associated with it, but the one pager.
I'm not sure.
Jesus.
Where's the percentage at on it? You got it?
It's called a resolution of the Utility Service Board of the City of Frankfort, Indiana, approving certain matters in connection with the reimbursement of expenditures relating to the city's waterworks bond. That's you need a copy?
Okay, that would be resolution 2020-07-06-01.
Is that what you said?
It should have been in the packet.
Yeah, I have.
Well, I didn't print it off because it's 43 pages. And I didn't get it until the day and I was out of ink.
Well, there's a copy for you.
Is there
That
anything
was prepared by Barnes, correct?
Okay,
But I had it Friday.
again, we're looking for a,
I'll make a motion that we pass resolution 2020-07-06-.
Second. Just my copy for
You
your.
can have it. You can have it. I can get online. It's no problem.
okay, we'll get to,
I'll sign it. That's okay, I'll sign one.
we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Rick Duggan,
Aye.
Joe Root,
Aye.
Mike Reeder,
Aye.
Kent Brewer, Mike Kelly.
Aye. There's one copy signed.
I got the other one coming this way.
Maybe, Mr. Starkey should have went first.
No, I need it here. Hold on.
Rick?
Bill. Let's keep it as one copy.
Yeah. Who keeps your copies? Andrew.
You want me to sign it?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, first. I think they get rid of it.
I'll check out and let him get out of here.
Yeah, it's just turn by the eye.
Did you just give us these, the other resolution and the
Ordinance.
Ordinance is,
That's just something for, that's what would go to the council.
information.
Information.
Okay.
The rate ordinance?
Yeah.
It's got the rates and charges in a format consistent with the rate study that you have in front of you.
That's coming up later, another time, right?
So how that goes.
Yeah, it'll be to the council later.
But they have to pass this resolution.
For the reimbursement?
No. This one here.
But we need to determine what the rates are going to
Oh, yes,
be before
yes.
we.
Oh,
It's approving rates.
That's approving the rates insofar as you can approve them. I think it is sending the recommendation to the council.
Right. But we need to do that after we've got the final rate study and we know exactly what we're doing, correct? Or if we want to have to do that today.
That is, if you're comfortable with the rates and charges as they're outlined right now, the rate study in front of you is it. And that's what is in the rate ordinance that will go to council, the one that you have in front of you.
the 53.6, right?
So if you want to make a recommendation that the rate study that we just looked at, those rates and charges go to the council to be passed as an ordinance, then you would want to approve this resolution so that we can then send it to the council and they can have a hearing and all of the following.
We need to pass this.
That's what,
That's the
that's why I was
question.
asking if there was a consensus that we were happy with, or we were okay with going with 50.
You know, I mean, I don't think we're gonna get more than 53
I-
from the council, so I mean,
It's gonna
we
be a
just want to
struggle
get
there.
what we can get, and then we'll make it work.
Where?
So I'm looking for a motion to pass resolution 2020-07-06-01, which is a resolution recommending the adoption of new water rates and charges for the city of Frankfort, Indiana.
So moved.
Second.
Wouldn't that be a two?
No, because I already had a number.
This is a two reverse.
So that one was up to,
This is 01.
what? That one's a one.
This was 01 because I already had the number on it.
Gotcha. So, a one, we read it off the first time.
All right. It was motion by Mike, second by Joe. All right. Roll call.
Rick Goodman.
Aye.
Joe Ruth.
Aye.
Mike Reeder.
Aye.
Kent Brewer.
Aye.
Mike Kelly.
Aye. Somebody has a cleaner copy than I had. Get two copies signed.
I've got a copy.
I'll take one back. I'll take one back.
Need that.
Got one coming at you. Same one that, no, don't look right.
It was, I think.
Yeah, it is.
250.
Yeah, it is.
I don't like the number on that one.
Can't hardly read it.
Mine's clean. Take mine.
So you do sign that one, I'll do a second.
All right.
That one does not have a number on it yet.
I got it down here. We get the good one. Yeah. And then Joe and I need to get one. Oh, never mind. Sorry, getting ahead of the game. Time to go home, isn't it? You guys better make it short.
So you want, we can make.
Those two got signed this.
Wait.
I don't think we signed.
You two signed that one.
Three of them, did we? Okay, never mind.
You guys decided, yeah.
Yes, yes.
All right, there's one, this one's completed, I think.
That'll
Except
be
for
you,
you.
Jason.
You can keep that one. So,
It's got to be done.
that would be Andy, that's it. All right. All the business related to the water completed now.
As far as I know, yeah, at this point in time, yeah.
Maybe.
Rich, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Do
Andrew.
you need me to stay or do you want to talk or anything afterward? See you in the
I-
parking lot?
We'll let you get out of here.
Probably too much information. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, and again, I'll work on getting out additional information from Andrew and working with,
Yeah, I should be able to get back. It'll look a little different.
that's fine.
We'll
We'll work
where I
through
was
it.
sending you before,
Yeah.
but it's way more accurate.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it, everybody.
Thank you, buddy.
Andrew, what do you have for us tonight?
Working with our Tyler point person for the PACE program that we purchased from them earlier this year, which if you recall was the 3 Connect passes and some training days for the youth. We have not utilized any of the 5 training days, but Stacy and Becky and I believe Sarah was in the email, not on them. She said anything about needing anything, but we're trying to work on utilizing those for this person. I know I have an idea of a couple things that I would like to be schooled on more deeply, and I think you had a couple in your office, right? So that's about it.
Oh, yeah, this expired, but
Yes, December 31.
this year.
So, and they're scheduling, what they say, 2 to 3 months out. So we're gonna try and get on the schedule for all 5.
Are these on site here?
They would be
They said mostly it would be
go-to meetings, which is essentially a conference call with them,
Right.
being able to
There
remote
you
in,
go, yeah.
which is part of the SAS.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Stacy?
I don't have anything other than just to say that calls that we have open, some have been addressed, some they're working on. We have a call with our account manager and one of the higher ups on Wednesday. That's all I have right now.
Okay. Mike?
Not in our case, it's just our usual maintenance type thing, but early in the year, a couple of you guys were interested in our bond, working on, changing out poles and like that. We're starting to approach up to 300 this year, so we're doing better with the contractor also. We also changed, 9 repos have been changed out, 8 of them are in operation, because one of them had a cable fail off. But that's how we're doing on the bond this year.
Jane, you got anything for us tonight?
I don't really have anything to report tonight.
Okay. Let's go with water. You got anything other than what we've already talked about?
Well, 23 is supposed to be reset on Wednesday, essentially. We issued a full advisory for tomorrow morning for hydrant replacement. I think probably most of you know that Southbridge subdivision was approved through IDEM, so they should be starting on the water after tomorrow, potentially they can start. And then we've got the Wabash Street proposals back and West Hills and Homestead. And that's what with Todd's approval, we've chosen for that design.
How many did we get back?
All 3 of them. If you like those, I can email them to you.
I've got to see one of those.
Sewer maintenance?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Are we doing any in-process inspections on South Fork or what it's called.
On
How's
South
that
Ridge,
construction?
if it was strictly us, yeah.
Yeah.
Currently, we don't have anything in place, anybody in place to do that, other than ourselves. That's
So
something I
our-
hope to be working on in the future.
Okay. But our plan is to have one more of our people inspect as we go.
It's not gonna be a 8 hours a day type.
No, no, no.
Or look, I actually spoke with Dylan last week about how to train somebody for that.
And Jim Spears has already been out, they've already set 2 manholes, they contacted him as soon as one was set, the second was set, and he's been out to inspect it, make sure everything's going correctly, our sewer maintenance and stuff, so.
I'm
They've been,
trying to avoid like a nasty stop work order halfway through and
no,
dig everything up and.
this is
This ain't Rocky River.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, I wasn't gonna mention that name.
Completely different.
Yeah, so
I think we're on the internet.
they're in contact with us all the time, and we'll have people out to make sure that it starts.
Great, thank you. Good answer.
That's it.
Other questions? Okay,
Chris,
wastewater.
got one.
What?
Are they ductile iron or are they putting C9?
The air ductile iron is what I specified to them back then. If that's something that needs to be, you guys are wanting to change, then we are doing standards with Westlers right now that we need to address. If we're going to use C900 in our system. That was what our current standards were at the time they requested from us.
That's what it was. The only place that we've seen that 100 is all that system.
It would obviously cheapen the price or lower the price, as you well know, and it may entice others to build their, I guess, I don't know.
Wastewater.
Are they under a roadway and the additional,
Oh, yes, the one.
Yeah,
as opposed to in the easement
Yeah,
under the farm fields?
Yeah, no, they're under the road.
Wastewater treatment?
Let's go. Bowen's on site, they've done some tree removal, and they started today on, digging the new 12-inch drain in front of the parking lot for the, dewatering building and, heading north towards the process building. Other than that, I don't have a lot.
Questions? Anyone?
One of the things out there that they've done underground work and stuff, and they're basically spotless, but they hung a sign on a fence, it's a Bowen Engineering, build it like you own it. And, I really do think that's where this project's gonna go, these guys they're pretty sharp.
I'm pretty impressed with it so far. I know it's early, but from what I've seen, past some.
You got my hard hat and vest out there?
Got the vest today, we haven't got the hard hats yet.
Make sure you hang it up for me, because I'll be spending a lot of time out there.
All right, sewer maintenance.
Just on the South Ridge, I was gonna bring up, they set all 3 manholes, they're almost done with the sanitary mandrel test and air test. They're called, I'll go out and be on site while they do that, watch the air test and the manhole test. And get the paperwork back on that, I can share. And then we've got 1 manhole set on Wabash Street tomorrow, and then the paving's all done. Paving the streets, and then we're still cleaning camera. When the camera's working.
Rick? You're, anything you want to talk about lagoons tonight?
I am with some others, I am evaluating a couple options to improve site security. I'll bring back to the board, I'll have more information, I am working on that. Wednesday morning, I have a fish and wildlife consultant from Indiana DNR scheduled to meet me at the lagoons and talk about wildlife, fish, water, aeration, circulation, water tests. We're gonna have that second set of tests done.
Yeah, they started working on them Thursday or today, one, two.
And that leads to the time conflict I have. The one thing I have to do all week is Wednesday morning.
And we're trying to get that changed to Wednesday.
And the guy's coming from like northern Lake County, how he ends up being a fish and wildlife expert, living like 5 miles from Chicago, I don't know. He's driving clear down here, he's going to Purdue, so I don't I don't have flexibility to do that.
Like I said,
Well, we're trying. I don't know if we're gonna have any flexibility with the higher up to be, that says higher, but we're trying to get it for Wednesday afternoon. I'll let you know as soon as we get the time.
If you can't move it, I'll just call it and take one day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Call it.
Yeah. And it was Jennifer that got her higher up involved, not
Yeah.
us, so that's on them.
Right, okay.
If we need to talk with her without him, or just her higher up, I'm fine with that. 'Cause we're not gonna beat her up, we're just gonna talk to her.
Right, I understand that.
Let me know.
Anything, General Manager?
Well, I just got a couple things. I don't know if we briefly discussed it earlier as well, that the moratorium for shut-offs has been extended at least August 15th or 14th to 15th. At least, so puts us back where we're still back to square zero. We're then you make square one. So
One of the questions I have, is that electric only or is that everything?
it's the governor, the IURC came out for it, and they regulate, but then the governor came out and it's for August.
But frankly, we wouldn't want to do it with just electric and not everything anyway, because the way we set up our payment plans, we set it up so that they started, so that they had to pay them within 6 months of the moratorium. If we have a moratorium that ends July 1st, and then we have a moratorium that went in 6 weeks later, we're gonna have a huge mess in the billing office just trying to keep up with that. So, my recommendation was going to be that we extend all of them to the 14th just to keep it simple. But the governor made that decision for us, so we don't have to worry about it.
The question I have about that whole thing is, I know we can't shut them off and we can't do this, but can we communicate to them that it might be a wise idea to maybe try to get some of it paid now?
Yes.
And not waiting till it's over?
Putting information and stuff on their bills and everything is,
Yes.
I think it's been kind
You
of falling on deaf ears so far.
You can also send them the payment plan information, if we wanna start sending them that information and say,
I
hey,
mean-
once, we know you're behind, you're not gonna get shut off, but here's the payment plan information if you'd like to enter into it, so that way we've got it on file. But the problem is, you've got the people who are not, there are some people who are not paying because they legitimately cannot. There are other people who are not paying because they can get away with
Because
not.
they don't have to.
Right, and so those are the people that you're gonna have issues with throughout the next 6 months, year, whatever, because those are the people that you're gonna end up chasing, you're gonna probably end up taking them to small claims court, and you legitimately won't be able to get anything out of them because they probably don't have the money because they've spent it on other things.
Well, I just feel like we need to at least,
You and a lot of other, other people, like.
if we get somebody to do something that's at least,
Well, you have had some people that came in and didn't want to pay ahead or pay the past due, but the list is going back from the last time I checked. So,
Well, for people who are honestly trying, even to say to them, hey, we accept partial payments.
Yeah.
I may not be able to pay in full. But for the other class of people who don't care and aren't gonna pay, they don't have to, you can tell them whatever, it'll make you.
Yeah, because actually, it wasn't long after I started, I had Stacy asked me a question when I saw that there was no disconnects come into play. And then through Christmas, right out of whack, people might ask the question, it's actually this time of year, people think they're disposable income by fire. So this time of the year is our highest rate of disconnects anyway.
And vacations.
Vacations. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
to answer your question, you can send them the information, but that doesn't mean that they're going to do anything about it. And realistically, unless we can get them to willfully start making payments.
well, I agree, but I just feel like
how much we can
I'm
do.
frustrated because I think we're just giving in to their will or their idea that I'm not gonna pay unless I absolutely positively have to.
Well, and frankly, the guidance that we received from the IURC and from the governor's office that even if we can do disconnects, we shouldn't do disconnects for a period of time to get people used to the idea that disconnects can't happen. I mean, even that is just prolonging the inevitable. At some point, this stops, and we're going to disconnect people, and there's going to be a lot of very unhappy people.
Well, we're gonna hit the moratorium now too, in the winter, so we're looking at potentially.
Next summer, it's gonna suck for a lot of
The
people.
IURC must have made, read too much into the Frankfurt Bean Ice campaign.
Yeah, that's why I think so.
Okay, okay, let's say I'm overdue on my bill. Do we notify people that they're overdue?
Yeah, they still get a ping, they still
get the
get ping paper.
Can we put something in that says, please don't wait, I mean, not these words, but please don't wait till the last, this would be a great time to start helping pay for that.
We can come up with some sort
All
of
right.
tax verbiage.
I just,
You know what I would
can't.
mail back to you?
Huh?
I'd mail back to you.
Sure, and all the stuff that will come with it. I don't know, I just feel like we need to
I'll
do
pay my
something.
bill when I want.
So, on a serious note, for persons that are in arrears, can they just simply move to another address and get service connected?
Not
And not pay their,
No, because they,
even during this period?
that's a great, I don't know, that's a great question.
We have an attorney present.
That's a great question.
I would say that we are not allowed to do disconnects. I don't know that the language specifically wouldn't allow us to connect them in the first place, but I would say you're walking a tightrope there.
Let's walk by.
I mean, the language specifically prohibits disconnects.
They
But
just find
the
somebody else to
intention of
their
it-
name
We
anyway.
have a high percentage of renters in our
I
town,
know.
45%. And a lot of those move more than once a year. So,
Right.
just saying.
Well, right now, they're not.
Right, so I mean, so we may not have to
Maybe it's
do,
not a problem.
but the bottom line is that the language, I don't think specifically calls for that, but the point of it is to prevent people from being punished for not paying. So if you take the legislative intent to all say, probably not a good thing to do, but.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, the other thing is, Alicia looked back through the, purchase agreement with BSM, and she got it to me, and I got it back in their hands, so we're looking at it, and once they can sign, then we'll go ahead with the, surveying, everything else that we need to do to push that forward. So, that's all I have.
Legal brief or claims? We have claims.
Make a motion, we approve claims.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Rick. To approve the claims as presented. Roll call.
Joe Root. Aye. Rick Denny.
Aye.
Mike Reeder.
Aye.
Ken Brewer.
Aye.
Mike Kelly.
Aye. All right, you've got something for us, Alicia, right?
I do. There was the person who ran into the fire hydrant on the Pinley Avenue and caused some damage. We were able to reach a settlement agreement with them that they would pay us $8,000 if we would just let this go. We agreed to that, and I have a settlement agreement and release of claims where we essentially say that we agreed to settle for $8,000. And they did pay the $8,000. It is in our trust account. Once that processes, I will get that to Utility Service Board because they made a check out to me. So I don't know why, but they did. So I need a motion. What?
You did most of it back.
I don't know about that. We didn't go to court. Hadn't gone to court, I would have. But what we need is a motion to approve this, and a second, please.
I'll make a motion, it's the settlement agreement passed.
Ken makes a motion,
Second.
second by Joe. Roll call.
Rick Denny.
Aye.
Mike Reeder.
Aye.
Joe Root.
Aye.
Ken Brewer.
Aye.
Mike Kelly.
Aye.
That's all I have.
I had old delayed payments and old business, but we've talked about that. Any new business? Any other old business?
The only thing I have is reference Dylan is, I think in 2 hours ago, when you were talking, you made mention that you would be bringing some paperwork in here for a point person for signature. Don't waste your time. From now on, the entire board will sign, we won't have a point person.
So that's a requirement, as far as I know. I will ask them how they would like us to handle this situation, if that's okay. But those are things that SRF says that they require.
One easy way would be to list all of us on it.
don't want to do it, we'll get somebody else.
All right. Anything for the good of the board tonight?
Will our next meeting be at Old Stone?
Unless there's, some reason that we shouldn't, it will.
Where do you guys want it?
We had to advertise, right, Dylan?
Yeah, I sent the ad in the paper today.
Oh, you put an ad in?
For the public hearing on the 20th. And I listed this address.
Okay, it'll be here.
Get here a little lower.
Thank you.
It'll be here.
Did it shut off?
No, it's running.
You're in charge.
You're on.
Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I agree. It helps with those blinds being shut. It wasn't quiet. Close.